What is going on, y'all? My name is Jeremiah Maestre. Thank you for having me on the show. Just to
Yeah.
give you a little introduction about myself, I am born in Quezon City, Manila, Philippines. I immigrated to California when I was 3 years old, and I am a boxing coach. I'm also a competitive fighter, and I made a career from all this. So I'm also a creator, content creator. I build digital products off of boxing. I train clients on the East Coast and West Coast and everywhere in between when I can. I am a father. I am a husband. I got two kids. So yeah, I'm doing the family man thing and building my career, taking my passion of boxing and sharing it with the world. Thank you for having me on this episode.
Oh my God, absolutely. Honestly, what that all was is that he does it all. Um, and it's incredible, the bandwidth that you have. But I love telling people how I know the other person on the other side. And truth be told, I knew your face well before I knew you. Just having been a avid attendee at a, let's say, boutique boxing gym here in Washington, D.C. And there's this thing they do where they use these GIFs and these real people. And I was like, these people are real. I had no idea. And then you kind of fell into my purview because you ended up being friends with a number of my boxing coaches. And then I muscled up the courage to ask you to run a segment or a session with me. And it was so much fun. And since then, it's just been a blast getting to know you and having the opportunity to be a part of kind of your journey in some way of how you're creating content. You had me on your podcast, and it's been so fun to just get to know you and be a part of your hustle and your grind. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity to sit down and share all the things that I think are incredible about you with my listeners. And I was so grateful to have been on your podcast as well. So
How crazy it is that we only spend maybe face-to-face in person within our physical presence, maybe 2 hours total of actual training.
yeah.
And then that's about it. But I feel like we're so close now because we spent, over an hour on the podcast, and we connect every day through our social content, and we do very similar things as far as the creating space and the boxing space. So I feel like we're a lot closer than just spending a total of 2 hours together in person.
I mean, that's the beauty of leveraging social media in a really thoughtful way of building community. And I think it's something that you also, that idea of community, something that you very much attach to. And I think it has to do too with the fact that you're doing something you're so passionate about. And it doesn't hurt that a lot of people that I care very deeply about, love you and vice versa. So it's amazing how worlds collide. You have kind of gotten into this place and space where I feel like you've just really stepped into your own, you're really owning every part of your life right now. The fact that you've been an actual fighter, an instructor, a coach, a father, all these things, you've taken on all these titles, worn all these hats, but it didn't happen overnight. It kind of it's been a process and I don't know, it's been a journey, I'm sure. I'm wondering if we can maybe start by leaning into how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, I have stories and stories. I have stories and stories and stories. So tell me which category first, and I'll go into it. The coach, the father,
Well,
I can tell you how I became a father.
I think we all know how babies are made, but no, but let's talk a little bit about how you found boxing and how you ended up kind of stepping into a space where you're not only, fighting, but you're also coaching and helping other people fall in love with the sport.
Funny, I grew up playing basketball. I was really, really into basketball. I thought I was, the shit when it came into basketball. I was well known in the local scene. Playing for my high school. I played point, team captain. I made all league within the county I was in. I thought I was cool with it, and then I came into college, and literally would try out for lower level collegiate schools, Division two, not even NCAA, and schools small private Christian schools, and
Sure.
I would get no looks. It was a shot to the ego, and I pride myself on being an extremely, extremely hard worker. I learned that from my parents, hustling, growing up with the American dream and everything. And so I was a really hard worker, and I would grind for these camps to prove myself. And I would get no looks. And eventually got fed up with it. And like, I need to find a sport or a skill that will pay off. The amount of work I put into it, it will pay off back to me. Like the height I was born with, or the ability of how high I can jump, shouldn't be able to affect the skill set that I want to pursue. And I actually, at that time, mixed martial arts was becoming huge. UFC was becoming huge. I would, watch the fights with my friends, and I said, I want to try that. I was getting really big into fitness too, post high school, transitioning from basketball, and I was like, I want to try the fighting thing, the cage fighting thing. So I literally signed up at a gym down the street, a MMA gym down the street from my college. And I would literally like save as much money as I can to pay for that membership. And I would just take classes there. Not even an actual trainer or coach dedicated to me. I would just take classes.
It's so crazy.
And then I was like, okay, I'm going to sign up for this tournament where, you don't get paid anything, but you show up and you could hit this guy as much as you can, just not to the face. And he could hit you back. He could punch you. He could kick you. He could knee you. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I was an ambitious guy, and I trained for it. And, I did okay. And from that experience on, I fell in love with the grind of martial arts training and training to fight in the cage. You're training all different martial arts. So, I did separately, just from the cage fights, I did kickboxing only fights. I did jujitsu only tournaments. Right. And then I did strictly boxing matches. And out of all the martial arts I did, boxing was the one that I was the worst at. Yeah. It was funny because the wrestling jujitsu thing, as I was getting really into fitness, I was getting strong. I was putting on a lot of muscle. I could use that plus the technique to kind of manipulate things and be successful within that. Yeah. Kickboxing, I was somewhat athletic, so I could pick up the athletic movement of throwing a hard kick and throwing a knee. But boxing was the one I couldn't really pick up, where you had to be like graceful and smooth with the movements. I was always so tense. I actually still feel like I'm a tense fighter. And it wasn't until I started diving into the deep technique of boxing where I really fell in love with it.
I mean, it's like so interesting. I understand exactly what you're saying, because we've had this conversation, right, where boxing is very much, or any of these mixed martial arts really are like, what you put into it is like what you're going to get out of it. You have to work your ass off. And at the same time, though, you're not limited by your stature or whatever the case may be. Fun fact, I have been the same height since I was in third grade. So I also played basketball, and then eventually had to understand the fact that like this was not going to happen for me, no matter how much I love the sport. But yeah, I mean, that's incredible. And it's more incredible, I think, that you proactively were like, yeah, I want to go in and like beat up another person, like hit another person, because that's been, for me, that was my biggest challenge in taking on boxing. It wasn't something that I felt like was an easy thing to overcome, but it sounds like it was something that you were kind of okay with. But it's funny because I don't find you to be like a very aggressive person.
I was really, a lot of internal work I've done through the years of training and other things. But coming out of high school, again, local guy, you really think, your shit doesn't stink, but it really does. And you become humbled. But at first I'm still to this day very ambitious, and I'm wired to think like I can accomplish anything I want to accomplish if I put my mind to it, if I put the hard work behind it. I was a little more ambitious in college though, because I have been humbled very few times until I was put in these environments. So yeah. And of course, boxing was the hardest out of everything. I would get beat up a lot. I would get hit. First time I got hit in the face, my eyes got watery. I think my contact got knocked out. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And it made me want more of it.
Yeah.
The harder it was, the more I wanted to try to overcome it.
So when do you fight in your first amateur fight? And what is that experience like? And how does it kind of push you to continue to fight many, many more fights after that? I mean, how many do you have total?
A little under 20.
That's a lot.
I remember my first actual cage fight. Not that tournament where you couldn't hit in the face, but you could hit everybody else. Right. I was at pancreatic tournaments, what they called it back in the day. My first actual cage fight, I actually took it against a guy that was like 3-0 undefeated, from a well-known gym. I took the fight. It was at the fairgrounds. I literally took it on a few days' notice. And I was like, yo, I've been working hard. I could take on this guy. And going into that, I was so confident. And I was like, I put the work in. I'm ready to go. My coach thinks I'm ready. And, I put up a good maybe 1 minute until the guy choked me out.
Yeah.
Again, very humbling experience. But I have that relentlessness like instilled in me that the only way I truly lose is if I quit. And I'm going to keep going after it.
I know it still exists. Like it's very much who you are. And then we can talk more about it. I mean, you like have blown my mind like multiple times since like really knowing and paying attention to like the way that you move and some of the physical activities you do. I mean, we can talk about the fact that you like ran a flat out marathon, like randomly just for fun on vacation in just a second that you didn't train for at all. But I'm really curious. So you go through this experience where you become a fighter, you're fighting in 20-ish amateur fights. At the same time, you are stepping into a space where you're also becoming like a fairly public figure in, I'll say in New York, with a boxing gym that's, fairly popular, more boutique fitness. Where do the two kind of overlap? Like when do you step into that journey, or how do the two worlds collide? Because what you're describing is like a very cage fighting. It's like real like boxing than what you're talking about. And boutique fitness is like a very different environment. It's a very different space. So how do you find yourself kind of meshing the two worlds?
Well, it's funny you mentioned seeing me on a GIF in the boutique boxing studio, and I was going to make a sarcastic joke and say, I'm glad I didn't, because it was a total dad joke. I was going to say, how did you notice me? I look like everybody else, which I absolutely don't look like your typical group fitness instructor. I think I was one of the first to really recognize that there was a space for boxing and martial arts in the fitness space. I talk about it all the time through my content, through other podcasts. I made a career and I built a successful career teaching, sharing my experiences fighting with other people in the fitness world. I got noticed by a boutique boxing studio that was owned by another fighter who recognized that on the East Coast in New York. I walked in to check out his gym and he saw me, said, "Hey, we're expanding. You should move over here and help us expand." The company is called Shadowbox. Beautiful.
Shadowbox.
Oh my gosh, I love that concept. Love that studio.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Man, COVID. But and I moved there. This was the time Soul Cycle was blowing up, and I think they had sold like a year before that. Was popping up everywhere as far as locations. I said, what if you pulled out all the bikes and you just put bags where the bikes are?
Yeah.
And then someone beat me to it in New York. I said, rather than like, I always understood it's more than me, more than just me. It's more than like, it doesn't revolve around me and what my ideas are. Like, what if we could build this together? And that's why I moved to New York and I put off what I was doing here in California. I moved to New York and I started really going deep into the group fitness scene. And group fitness, it's hard to really explain it to people who aren't in that group fitness scene. It's huge. It's a huge scene. It's a positive scene. You really get to touch so many different people all at once as an instructor, as a coach. That's what I loved about it.
Yeah.
But that's how I fell into it. I just started teaching kids, and then I saw a space for boxing and martial arts in the fitness world. And I got noticed by some bigger players, and I moved to New York. I took that risk. I said, if I think I'm a good coach here locally in California, then New York will really prove to me if I could do it at a high level.
Yeah, and it did. I mean, you've had the opportunity to train and build that brand, and I don't know if we want to mention it, but I mean, you've built that brand.
No, we can, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Rumble, right?
Yes, yes.
Rumble
I love
boxing.
Rumble.
also love Rumble. I mean, it's how I found boxing. It was sort of my gateway drug into the wonderful world of boxing. And, one of the things that I think it does a really great job as it makes it very accessible to people and gives them the confidence to, kind of explore it further if they want to. But you were very successful in doing that. I mean, you helped build out like a part of the founding team, and I know had an influence on a number of coaches that have made massive influence on me. But it goes further than that, right? I mean, eventually you peel off from Rumble, right? And you kind of start leaning in more into your own, training and building your own brand and kind of expanding it to training people from all over the globe. I mean, where's the transition there? Like, how does that happen for you? Is this kind of stepping into your role more as a father and kind of trying to find your own balance?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, Rumble, I love Rumble. I'm so grateful for the owners they've become, especially Eugene, Ram, and Noah. They were great mentors to me in the group fitness game, in the fitness game, in the building of my own brand game, even within the role I played at Rumble, which I know it was an important role. I got to really develop the founding instructors and instructors from other locations as far as the technical boxing side of things. How do we take such an intricate sport, make it basic and make it approachable to all? How do we teach that? And I'm confident to say, like, I caught the eyes of other fighters and other fight coaches and other boxing coaches that are like, hey, we don't have to just train fighters. We could train the general population.
Right.
And I feel like I helped shed the light on that working at Rumble. And I'm grateful that they gave me that opportunity to do that and to give me a shot. And like I said, moving out to New York, I was like, I got a shot to prove that I'm one of the best, not just boxing coaches out there, but great coaches, great trainers, great group fitness instructors. Like, I want to be put at the highest level of things. There goes the ambition again, right? I get ambitious about things and prove that. And, we're popping. 13 locations in, DC, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, a ton in New York. We revamped the model a little bit too, a little pre-COVID. It was a time Eugene Rem was really heavy into running that and working with me. I'm grateful for that man. And then COVID hit. And, 13 locations at the same time, we're still a startup. We're still only been in this two and a half years. We don't necessarily have a huge chunk of change just in the bank ready for a pandemic.
Right.
And
no one was ready.
Yeah. And I understood that. And I understood that they had to do what they had to do with the company. And I had to do what I had to do with myself. And again, I still got so much love for everyone there. I got love for the owner. I still look at Eugene and Noah as mentors and brothers to me and good friends. Even reached out like, hey, if you need help with anything during this crazy time, let us know. And I really appreciate that. But at the same time, I've been on my own grinding and working since I was like 16. I knew, like, if I had to start over again, I could do it. I have the work ethic behind that. And when COVID hit, I had a son, Theo. He was not even one at the time. And I was like, oh, it's game time. I have to do something.
Right.
And it helps that Annie has that same mindset too. So we were both hustling to figure it out. And I was like, let me look at the trends of things. And you say, I got to get better about being nicer to myself when it comes to these things. But like, I still feel like I have so much more I want to accomplish and so much more I want to do. But I do feel like I'm finally finding a little stride as far as building my own brand and my content and my following and getting my message and passion out there to people. Yeah, so that's how it happened. That transition was really COVID.
So COVID's been just one of those things, as I've had conversations with folks that have stepped into roles of entrepreneurship or have really like taken massive bets on themselves. It has been like the beauty and pusher, for a lot of people that have seen really high reward and high yield for the hard work that they've put out. So it's interesting. Something so tragic and something so obviously like devastating for our country has really, really allowed, not just our country, the world, has really allowed people to kind of step into a space where they get to take really, really thoughtful bets on themselves. And a lot of times it's paid off, at least with the folks that I've talked to. I want to put a pin on where we're at, though. I'm really curious if you think back to like baby Jeremiah, like real young, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a professional athlete.
So this has just been pumping through your veins since like day one.
Oh my gosh. And it still is to this day. I mean, if you think about boxing, I had under 20 fights, but all in the amateur rankings. There's just something about calling yourself a professional and making this everything you do in your day is just to win. And although I'm doing that now in different categories, but just being a professional athlete, I idolize Michael Jordan and his competitiveness, and then Kobe Bryant as well, and Allen Iverson. I loved his style, and if anything, I mimicked the way I played off of AI the most because we played the same position. But that's what I wanted to be growing up. Is that.
It's an amazing thing because you actually are still getting to like very much live some of that energy out, right? I mean, you're not suiting up and taking the court, every few days for a professional game. But I mean, you are still like very much training, very much working hard, continuing to maintain that level of ambition, that drive, that determination. You're also helping other people step into those spaces where they get to be maybe fulfilling their dreams of being an amateur fighter, being a pro fighter, whatever the case may be. So I always like to ask the question because it's always interesting when there's parallels or when there's opportunities for people to kind of see that they have fulfilled that younger version of them in some way. I know for you, professional fight is on your mind. Like you really, really want to snag yourself a professional fight. What has it been like for you to kind of like continue to train at that caliber, like at that level, or to continue to like have that as an item on your vision board? Even now as you're, a parent, like now that you have your own business, how are you balancing everything?
Balance is extremely, extremely difficult. I never wanted to come across like I have the perfect balance and I figured it out. I'm constantly figuring it out, depending on what kind of season I am going through within life. But just to go back to the professional thing, like I wanted to be a professional athlete. Honestly, like being a professional coach, I treat it almost the same. Like every session I have with a client, I treat it as if like the same details and the same focus as almost like a fight or a sparring session, like even down to being professional about that session, like sending out calendar invites and making sure.
I can attest to this.
Making sure my clients feel comfortable. Like I come at it with that same grit, attitude, dedication every single session. And again, I take pride on that. And why I think I've been able to find success with that. But going back to me pursuing a professional boxing fight, I don't want to say career because career means I'm taking multiple for a long period of time. I'm at a stage now, like I said, seasons. I have 2 kids, and every time I do a full training camp, my brain takes damage, and my body takes damage. And I'm 33 now. I have miles on me. I'm not as durable as I was before, and the risk reward isn't really as high as it was before.
Sure.
So figuring out that balance. I could say this though is I love the feeling when I am in a training camp as far as the discipline behind things, the feeling of accomplishment as far as like getting my diet down, getting proper sleep, getting proper recovery, making sure I'm hitting all my workouts. I love that feeling. And I'm kind of in a stage now where I'm also seeking out other ways of feeling like that doesn't, take brain cells away from me like boxing does.
Sure. I mean, part of that is, let's say, being on vacation and deciding to wake up and run a marathon, or continuing to be on this like cold therapy journey that you've been on for a while. I mean, you are someone that I think takes time to like challenge themselves, but to be really thoughtful about the challenges that they endure. And I think it's partly not only because you want to see like what you're able to accomplish, but like also I think that you are someone that continues to educate themselves on the benefits of, a wide variety of things. Maybe we can talk a little bit about like some of the, I don't want to say extremists, but like to wake up.
Yeah, I get extreme. For sure. Okay. I got no shame in it,
Yeah.
I think it stems from this, and I'm a big believer, and I appreciate and I admire people like this, is when people say they're going to do something and they actually do it.
Yeah.
And I try to surround myself with those kind of people as much as possible. But again, before I start seeking out people who are, about their word, I got to be about my word as well.
Yeah.
So anything I do, whether it's creating content, whether it's doing cold plunges for first thing in the morning for 30 days. I'm on day 26 today.
You're killing it. I'm so proud of you.
It's extremely difficult. Or telling people like, hey, I'm going to try to run a marathon on my vacation since I'll have some extra time on my hands. I haven't trained at all. Like doing these things, when I say I'm going to do something, I will do it.
Yeah.
And again, you have to like scrape me off the floor and for me to stop. And same with boxing. It's like that relentlessness. It's taught me that relentlessness. Like no matter how many times I've lost, I will still continue to come back and use this sport to elevate my life, elevate my lifestyle, and elevate those around me. So that's where it stems from. Is I'm a man of my word, and I take pride on that, and I appreciate other people that are like that as well. And I know I need to lead by example when it comes to that.
And that's part of the reason why I think there's a lot of people out there that can hold mitts, and there's a lot of people that can coach, and there's a lot of people that at least pretend like they can coach, right? But I think something that is very true about you is that you are very much like interested in mastering the things that you do, or like really like being true to the things that you do. And I think I will say outwardly, for having had a couple sessions with you or just having spent time getting to know you, you very much are all those things, right? And I appreciate that you lead by example. You had to make a decision, right, to take a bet on yourself during COVID and kind of lean into your building your brand. And it's obviously still a journey and something that you continue to work on and continue to do. But was there a specific moment, or has there been a specific moment where you have been kind of caught in I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. This is exactly where the universe, God, whoever it is that you believe in, this is where they wanted me. Have you experienced that yet?
Here and there. I mean, I'm very stubborn, and as patient as I may seem to be, I'm a little impatient. I always want striving for that next thing, which I know can be detrimental at times, but again, that ambition instilled in me. My therapist maybe has pointed out times where like you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And
yeah.
If I could think is maybe recently, maybe a couple of months ago, when I'm really finding my stride within my clients here and on the West Coast. Took me a while to really build the West Coast side of things, other than New York. New York, I don't want to say it was easy, but New York was for me. New York was me. I was made for me. I love being out there, and I vibe with the people well, and they vibe with me well. And I was able to build a community, like stride for stride for stride. When I moved to the West Coast due to COVID and wanting to be closer to family with our kids, it was harder for me to build a following out here and a community and clientele. And I was frustrated. But again, wasn't until I really dedicated all my time, all my effort, was disciplined with and to give context for everyone, I live maybe an hour, 2 hours with traffic away from LA.
Yeah. Which people don't realize.
Yeah. And I'll drive out there a few times a week to see clients because I know LA is similar to energy and people as New York is.
Right.
It wasn't until I put that discipline and that saying to myself, no, you will see this through. You'll give it your best. You will do everything to the best of your ability when it comes to this. If you say you're going to build a community and clientele out here, you will do it. And when I had that talk with myself, I want to say it was around September, it really started seeing itself through. I mean, I down to maybe I had 5 clients in a row on a Tuesday there, and all 4 canceled, only 1 left. I would still make the 2-hour drive to train them. Right. And to see it through.
Yeah, it's amazing to me because when did we train together? It was it had to have been in August or so. It was a couple months before my fight that I had in October. And I just thought, I felt very much like you were just you were doing exactly what you were supposed to be doing, or you're exactly where you need to be. And I think part of it is the way that you kind of carry yourself. But it's also, again, I think it's very clear that you're very passionate about what you're doing and you're very thoughtful about how you approach it. So anywho.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always looking for ways to elevate my experience when I'm training clients or when I'm going through my own boxing session as
Sure.
well. How do I refine this process, and not the grand scheme of how many people would think, but the little details that most people miss.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll go train at other places and they'll ask me like, who have you trained with? And I'll mention you. And it just so happens a few of them have been like, oh, I actually know that. I love the way he coaches. I love the way he trains. So I think you're doing a good job with
Thank
that.
you so much.
Yeah. So if you think about some of the challenges you've had to endure, I mean, I think we talked a little bit about it, balance being something that you're always kind of looking at, building out your brand. But like, what's been the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome as you've kind of been building out this persona, building out this energy, building out this business?
I mean, you kind of like mention it is being patient and understanding like I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And really for me, I've always been like a head down grind and just go full force into it.
Sure.
But it changes. And let me build a context behind this is, my counterpart, my better side, my wife, very successful in the fashion industry, had a great corporate gig. She was doing, withstood COVID,
Mm-hmm.
provide a lot of financial security between us. And she stepped away from that gig and started pursuing what she was passionate about, true crime, during COVID.
I love that.
Yeah. And she became a YouTuber. And if anyone that does YouTube understands how hard it is of a grind that is. And then her doing YouTube and TikToks and Instagrams and social media branched off into this crazy business now where she's represented by, the top agency in the world, WME. Her channel does better numbers than CNN when it comes into streaming, live cases. Like she absolutely crushes it with her business, and she hustled and got after it. But it's hard not to compare yourself.
Sure.
And it's hard not to be like, well, shit, why isn't my business doing what it's doing like she is? And how do I become her bigger? And I will take pride on this. I am her number one fan and supporter. I will freaking run up and down the streets screaming her channel's name, supporting her. But at the same time, how do I become her number one supporter, but not make this competitive and make this like, how do I keep building what I'm doing? And how do I not compare myself to other creators out there, other people with brands like my own? And I had to do the work to understand how to step back and realize like, oh shit, like you have accomplished a good amount in what you do, and compared to others, you really are doing it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't get caught up in what others are really doing and let it take away from what you've accomplished.
Yeah. No, I mean, that can be challenging in any capacity, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't help that you happen to be living side by side with somebody that's also like, a content creator and so forth, and also being able to follow through with the things that they're passionate about too. But at the same time, I think about like the amazing role models both of you are for your kids. Like it's amazing that they get to see both their parents step into like very, very solid spaces of entrepreneurship where they're taking full bets on themselves and really allowing themselves to follow through with the things they're passionate about. That's not something that every, child has the opportunity to see. So I think that's like a really, really amazing thing.
Yeah, I get, and challenging as well.
Sure.
I mean, there's always a challenge, and there's always a second side to things. Like, so you bring that up, but like, you understand how much time and effort it takes to just put into a podcast. That's one business as it is.
Yeah.
And then your career, and then your boxing, and then her channel, and then her photo shoots, and her podcast, and this video, and this broke out. And it takes a lot of time and effort from the both of us.
Yeah.
But how do we become present with our kids to let them know that they're our number one priority?
Yeah.
And how do we something went viral right in front of our eyes on our phone. How do we put our phone down and actually put our attention to, our children at that moment? And we're very hyper aware of that, hyper aware of that, and trying to understand and refine that balance. But again, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes us telling ourselves whatever we are doing, we need to do it to the best of our ability.
Sure.
And parenting is the number one when it comes to that.
With all of these different things that you have kind of in your life, when you think about like one thing, like one word to describe like what drives you every single day, what would you say that is?
It's a good question.
Thank you so much.
I'm stuck between, giving the generic, my kids, my family answer, but I think it's deeper than that. I'm a man of faith. I believe God instilled such a fire within me to do the things that I do. I want to say, my purpose, and my purpose is to help those that are around me. Those that cross my path, I need to help them as much as I possibly can. It just so happens a lot of people cross my path through boxing, or through the content I create, or through fitness, or through the studios. But, now these kids cross my path.
Yeah.
And that's my purpose too. And that's number one.
Yeah.
On top, and then everything else follows.
Sure. I mean, I think what you said just now about, how you're engaging with so many people, and it just so happens to be through boxing, is a really great opportunity to maybe talk a little bit just briefly about your podcast and like what you've been doing there with how you're highlighting some of these incredible like experiences and people that you've had the opportunity to meet just simply because of a shared love for something that you fell into, because ultimately basketball wasn't in the cards for you. I mean, what a journey to like kind of get to this place now where you have these very intentional relationships with people. You've been able to make massive impacts on people's lives, so much so that people travel like globally to have the opportunity to spend an hour-long session with you, 45 minutes with you. What has it been like for you to kind of be able to tell those stories and to be able to sit down and like shoot the shit with some of these people that, you have experienced in so many different ways?
Oh, it's been incredible. And again, like I try to release a episode a week, or do an interview once a week, to give context on that to everyone listening or watching. It's like there's so much prep and work that goes into it, right? So before I even talk about how the experience of enjoying it, like understand it takes a lot of work. The interview is an hour. The prep behind it's probably another hour. Then you rewatch the interview, which takes another hour. And then you do your timestamps and you edit your content to help promote it. It takes another hour. So minimum 5 hours per episode.
Right.
And I don't monetize. I do it for free. It's for free right now. And because I love it.
But we're taking sponsorships. So if anybody wants to sponsor either one, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, seriously. I'll throw out a free session too. But it goes to this thing is, and I think it's why I've been able to be successful in coaching boxing, whether it's in a group setting, a one-on-one setting, a digital setting, is I love people.
Yeah.
I love hearing their stories. I love hearing about them and who they are and why they do the things they do and things they've overcome. And they teach, like a lot of my clients, like they teach me so much about myself, and I learn so much about them through these sessions. And, if God so happened to put a passion of, I don't know, golf with them. I'm not a big golf guy, but then I would start seeking out people in that and connecting with them. So it ultimately isn't me passionate about boxing, it's being passionate about people. I've just been able to kind of connect the two.
Yeah. I mean, it's true intersection between your passion and your purpose, at least as I see it. I guess like if you think about your journey and like where it's been and where it's going, where do you see it going? Like, where is it headed for you?
I mean, goes back to my purpose, taking my passion of boxing and sharing it with as many people as possible. I see it reaching millions. I know it's reached millions.
It has.
Based off of analytics and based off of, companies I've worked with and helped build boxing programs. Peloton, I talk about the work I've done with them, and their boxing program hit 7 million plus subscribers. I understand like I'm helping get the word out there, but I want more of that, and I want more deeper connections than that. Deeper connection than just watching my content. How do I interact with as many people as possible through sharing this, wonderful thing of boxing?
I'm excited for where this might go.
Yeah.
If you think about advice that you would give other entrepreneurs or individuals that are taking massive bets on themselves, because a lot of people, truthfully are paralyzed by the idea of doing exactly what you did, which is saying, okay, I'm stepping away from something that could be like really solid and I'm going to do for myself. A lot of people don't have the capacity to do that. What is one piece of advice that you'd give somebody that might be right on the cusp of making that choice?
Don't do it unless you could give your 100% full effort towards it. And right. I'm not saying like quit your job and go after it, right? You could still build some on the side. But again, can you dedicate the time, effort, and hours towards it when you don't want to? Like, can you say no to like going out with your friends, or no to like watching a Netflix movie and winding down and working? Like, I can only speak from experience. Like only because I had these conversations with myself. Like, again, like I'll wake up at like 4 a.m., have a full day. Then I have to pick up my son, be present, feed him, feed my daughter, put them down for bedtime at night. All I want to do is chill. But no, I have that conversation with myself and said, no, you committed to this. And if you really want this to be as successful as you want it, like hop in the studio and dedicate a little bit more time to it. Like doing the things you don't want to, like those are the defining times of your career. So if you're not willing to do that, like reevaluate first and really, and to be able to tell yourself, I can dedicate, X amount to it. And if I can't give my full effort towards it, then, again, reevaluate.
Right. Amazing. Well, I feel like we could talk. I always feel like this. I always feel like we could talk for like hours just shooting.
Oh, I mean, it's only been 40 minutes. I got another 40 on me.
Oh my God. Yeah. I don't know if our listeners do. No, I'm just kidding. But I want people to be inspired to find you. Like, I want people to be inspired to connect with you. I think one of the things that I have really valued about our friendship is that you are somebody that's very approachable. I think that you appreciate hard workers, which just so happens I happen to be slightly psychotic and slightly a hard worker. So I think that is part of the reason why we've jived really well. But if people do want to like learn more about you, if they want to reach out to you when they're on the West Coast, or they want to connect, what's the best way for them to find you? And
my address and phone number are
I dare you. I'm just kidding. You could come though to the sick gym that he's built out in his garage.
If only I could do that, right? Just my full name, Jeremiah Maestre, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Mm-hmm. And even my email is just my full name at gmail.com.
I don't know if you needed to tell people that, but yeah. And then your podcast for folks that are listening. So
Maestre Mentality.
Yes. And how'd you come up with the name? Was it just
I came up within the pandemic too, because I was like, how do I brand myself and really instill how I'm feeling and use that to inspire others through such a trying time? And then again, like I would do like live Zoom classes and in my New York City apartment, and hundreds of people would join and thousands would come across the content eventually. And I was like, how do we keep showing up to bring ourselves up and to elevate ourselves? Like, the least we can do is do that and try to bring somebody up next to us. So that's where it comes from, like elevating ourselves so we could elevate those around us.
I love it. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me, share your story. I'm looking forward to whenever your fight happens. I will be there. I will travel in order to be there, wherever it might be. And I can't wait I'll see you soon. Like, I can't wait to train with you again.
Yeah.
So. I'm
going to see you at Yale. I'm going to see you very soon. I don't know when this is coming out, but
it could come out right around the same time. We don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. And I'm so excited to see how things continue to grow and all that good stuff for you.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah.